Mom, I need help. This date is a nightmare. 29-year-old Sharon Woods sent that text from a bathroom stall in Nikolai's roof, her hands trembling as she stared at the screen. Muted deep crimson satin slip dress that had cost 3 paychecks, bone-straight silk press she'd gotten that morning, and a cold dread in her chest that wouldn't let her breathe. She was on a reconciliation dinner with her ex-boyfriend Sean Hawkins. The same Sean who'd monitored her phone. The same Sean who'd made her feel 2 inches tall every day of their 8-month relationship. The same Sean her mother insisted was from a good black family with good values. Her mother texted back, "Stop being dramatic. Sean is waiting. Go back out there and at least listen. Do you know how many eligible black men there are? Do you want to end up alone?" So Sharon did what she'd been trained to do since childhood. She obeyed. She walked back through that restaurant, past crystal chandeliers and tables of Atlanta's black elite, and sat down across from a man who'd called her ungrateful, who'd accused her of being too sensitive, who'd made her question her own reality. She forced herself to smile through the tightening in her throat. But someone else in Nikolai's roof was watching. Kim Tae-chan sat 3 tables away, a glass of Hibiki 21 in his hand, pretending to review contracts on his tablet. And when Sharon returned from the bathroom and Sean dropped to his knees beside her chair, gripping her hand with both of his, performing repentance for the dining room audience while his fingers dug into her skin hard enough to hurt, Tae-chan stopped pretending. What happened next would force Sharon to choose between her mother's vision of respectability and her own survival. Between the safe life Patricia had scripted and the dangerous truth Sharon had been running from her whole life. If you're ready to watch a powerful man stand for the woman everyone else chose to ignore, tap that like button and subscribe. Join us as we uncover a journey of justice, healing, and the courage to finally walk away. But to understand how she ended up in that bathroom, texting her mother for permission to leave a nightmare, we need to go back 3 weeks. Back to the Sunday dinner that started everything. Sharon sat in her mother's dining room in Atlanta's historic West End, her iPhone buzzing against the mahogany table for the 4th time in an hour. Sean again. She'd been ignoring his calls all week. Ever since she'd ended things. Ever since she'd finally said the word, no, and meant it. On Patricia's dining table sat her grandmother's good china, a pot roast that had been simmering since morning, and the weight of 3 generations of black women who'd done what was expected. Sharon wore a cream sweater set, the kind her mother approved of, even though it was 78 degrees outside. Performance. She was always performing. When Patricia set down her sweet tea with that particular clink of glass on wood, Sharon knew what was coming. Sharon Elise Woods, her mother began, using her full name the way she did when she was about to deliver a sermon. Denise called me yesterday. Sean's mother. Patricia's sorority sister. Of course. She was beside herself. Sharon. Beside herself. Her son came to her house devastated, saying you ended things without even giving him a chance to explain his side. Sharon closed her eyes. Of course Sean had gotten to Patricia first. Of course he'd controlled the narrative. He didn't respect my boundaries, Mom. Boundaries. Patricia's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. Baby, relationships require grace. Forgiveness. You can't just throw away a good man because he got a little jealous. That's just him showing he cares. He went through my phone, Mom. Silence. Then Patricia's voice dropped to that soft, dangerous tone that always preceded her most cutting observations. I'm not saying you have to marry him, she said, folding her hands in her lap. I'm just saying, Sharon, you're 29. I've watched you walk away from 3 perfectly good men in the last 5 years. Sharon could recite the list like a catechism. Marcus, who'd wanted her to quit her job and be a supportive partner to his ministry. Darnell, who'd loved her until she got promoted above him. Keith, whose idea of commitment was, let's just see how it goes, for 3 years. 3 years. Sean is different, Patricia pressed, leaning forward. He has his MBA from Morehouse. His family has been in Jack and Jill since 1982. His father is a deacon. These are good people, Sharon. And good black men with careers and intentions are not easy to find. Do you know what Sister Carol asked me at church last week? She asked when I was going to have some grandbabies. And I had to stand there and smile while she went on and on about her daughter's wedding. He made me feel small, Mom. Sharon's voice cracked despite her best efforts. Every day. Like I was too much and not enough all at once. That's just how men are sometimes, baby. They need to feel like they're in charge. It's not about being small. It's about being smart. Your grandmother knew that. I know that. And one day you'll understand that a little discomfort is better than being alone. Sharon stared at her mother. At this woman who'd raised her to be excellent, to be twice as good, to never give anyone a reason to say she didn't belong. This woman who'd survived her husband's death by throwing herself into church committees and social clubs and the careful curation of respectability. Sean called me himself, you know, Patricia continued, stirring her tea with measured precision. Asked if he could take me to lunch. He brought flowers. Sharon. Roses from Whole Foods. The expensive ones. And he sat right here in this dining room and told me how much he regrets making you uncomfortable. How he's been working with a therapist to understand his communication issues. He said he knows he doesn't deserve another chance, but he's asking anyway because you're the best thing that ever happened to him. And you believed him. I believe in restoration. I believe that black love requires us to fight for each other, not run at the first sign of trouble. I believe that throwing away a good man from a good family because he made you uncomfortable is the kind of mistake you'll regret when you're 40 and still single, watching everyone else's children grow up. Sharon felt something crack inside her chest. Not break. Just crack. The first fracture in a foundation she'd spent 29 years building. One dinner, Patricia said, and it wasn't a request. That's all I'm asking. Hear him out properly. Give him a chance to apologize face to face. Show him the grace your grandmother would have shown your grandfather. Can you do that for me? Can you do that for yourself? The question Sharon wanted to ask was, when did myself start meaning you? But instead she heard herself say, fine. One dinner. Patricia smiled. The kind of smile that meant she'd won, that the proper order had been restored, that her daughter was back on the acceptable path. Nikolai's roof. Saturday at 7. I already made the reservation under Sean's name. Wear something nice but not too flashy. That crimson dress I got you for Christmas would be perfect. Sharon sat in her mother's dining room, the taste of pot roast turning to ash in her mouth, and wondered when she'd lost the ability to say no. Patricia Woods had been a widow for 7 years, but she still set 2 places at the table every Sunday. One for herself and one for the daughter who was supposed to be her legacy, the proof that she'd done everything right. When David died, massive heart attack at 52, fell in his office at the marketing firm he'd built from nothing, Patricia had lost more than a husband. She'd lost her social coordinates. At church, she became Poor Patricia instead of David and Patricia. At the Circle's holiday gala, she was seated at table 7 instead of table 3. The whispers started. Couldn't keep her husband's stress down. You know how some wives are. Sharon was 19 then, studying marketing because she wanted to finish what her father started. Patricia had watched her daughter transform grief into ambition and thought, this is how we survive. We perform excellence until they forget to pity us. But excellence wasn't enough. By the time Sharon turned 25, Sister Carol was asking about grandbabies at every church service. By 29, Sharon had walked away from 3 perfectly good men, and Patricia had a plan. Sean Hawkins was the kind of plan you didn't question. His father was a deacon at Ebenezer. His mother Denise had been Patricia's line sister. They'd crossed into Alpha Kappa Alpha together at Spelman in 1983, back when pledging meant something. The Hawkins family had been in Jack and Jill since Sean was 6 years old, the kind of pedigree that opened doors Patricia had spent her whole life trying to access. Sean had his MBA from Morehouse. He drove a Tesla. He volunteered at the Boys and Girls Club. His Instagram was full of him at charity galas, mentoring young black men, standing next to city council members at ribbon-cutting ceremonies. On paper, Sean Hawkins was everything Patricia had been taught to value. Educated, connected, committed to the community, and most importantly, visible. The kind of son-in-law you could mention at church without having to qualify or explain. The kind of son-in-law who would elevate both their family's standing, whose wedding would get a full-page spread in the Atlanta Daily World, whose children would have the last names and lineage to inherit the world Patricia and David had built. When Sharon ended things after 8 months, Patricia felt it like a second widowing. Another failure. Another loss of the future she'd carefully constructed. Another chance for the whispers. Can't even help her own daughter keep a good man. Probably raised her too independent. You know how career women are. So when Sean called, voice humble, apology rehearsed, roses from Whole Foods on the way, Patricia didn't just take his call. She took his side. Because Sharon finding herself was a luxury Patricia couldn't afford. Not when respectability was the only inheritance that mattered. Sharon returned from the bathroom with her mother's words still burning on the screen. The walk back felt like a death march through crystal and candlelight, past tables of Black Atlanta's finest pretending not to notice. Sean stood when she approached. Always the gentleman for the audience. His beige suit was tailored to perfection, his smile practiced and empty. The same smile he'd used when telling her she was overreacting to his going through her phone. Sharon. Thank you for coming back. She sat because refusing would cause a scene. Because Patricia had raised her to value composure over comfort. That's when Sean dropped to one knee. Not a proposal. Something worse. A performance of contrition designed for maximum witness impact. His hands captured hers, his grip tightening until her rings bit into her skin. I know I don't deserve this, he began, voice pitched to Carrie. I know I hurt you. But Sharon, I've been working on myself. Therapy. Learning to communicate. Using therapy language as manipulation. The same way he'd used love language, attachment theory, every piece of psychological terminology he could weaponize to make her doubt her own perception. Sean, please get up. Not until you hear me. Not until you understand you're the best thing that ever happened to me. Ms. Woods. The voice came from behind her, male and unfamiliar, carrying an accent that made her name sound like music. Sharon turned as much as Sean's grip would allow. The man standing beside their table wore a black suit that made Sean's look like a costume. Korean, she thought. His face was composed, but something in his eyes reminded her of the moment before lightning strikes. I apologize for the interruption, he said, his gaze flicking to where Sean's hands imprisoned hers. But we have an urgent situation with the Westbrook account. Sharon's mind went blank. She didn't have a Westbrook account. She didn't know this man. But his eyes held hers with an intensity that felt like a question. Do you want out? I'm sorry, she heard herself say, her voice suddenly steadier. I forgot we had that call scheduled. Sean's hands tightened for a fraction of a second before releasing her. His face shifted, confusion, then calculation, then barely concealed rage. We're in the middle of dinner. I understand, and I apologize. The stranger's voice remained polite, but something in his posture changed. He wasn't asking anymore. But the client is on the line now. Ms. Woods, if you're ready. Sharon stood before she could think, before Sean could speak, before her training could override her instinct. She reached for her clutch with shaking hands. Sharon. Sean's voice carried a warning. Sit down. She didn't. And the stranger, this man whose name she didn't even know, stepped aside with a small gesture that gave her space to move. Not pulling her away. Not rescuing her like she was helpless. Just opening a door she could choose to walk through. So she walked. The Atlanta night air hit Sharon's face like permission to breathe. Behind her, Nikolai's roof glowed 73 floors above the city. In front of her stood a stranger who'd just given her an exit. Thank you, she managed. Her phone buzzed, Patricia, no doubt, already getting Sean's version. She silenced it without looking. The man stood 3 feet away, close enough to help, far enough to let her breathe. No pity in his eyes. Just quiet observation. Kim Tae-chan, he said. And you're not Sharon Woods from Westbrook account. Despite everything, she almost laughed. There is no Westbrook account. I know. But you needed a reason that would hold up. Business emergencies are harder to argue with than instinct. Her phone buzzed again. Then again. A string of notifications that felt like an anchor trying to drag her back underwater. Tae-chan reached into his jacket and pulled out car keys. Mercedes. He held them out like a question. My car is the black S-Class in the executive lot. 3rd row, space 12. You can take it. Drive home, drive anywhere. I'll get it tomorrow, or next week, or whenever. You don't know me. No. But I know what it looks like when someone's hand is being held too tight. And I know what it costs to ignore that. What if I steal your car? Then I'll buy another one. I have insurance. She realized what he was really saying. That a car mattered less than watching someone walk free. She took the keys. There's a second option. If you don't want to be alone yet. Coffee shop in Duluth. Korean place. Very quiet. No one will know you there. He pulled out a business card. If you want to talk. Or just sit in silence. Sharon looked at the card. Behind her, her phone buzzed again. Patricia's ringtone, church bells. The coffee shop, Sharon said. I can't go home yet. Tae-chan nodded. No judgment, no triumph. Just quiet acceptance. Then I'll drive. You've had a difficult evening. He held out his hand for the keys. And Sharon? You can change your mind. Anytime. About anything. It was the permission that broke her. Not the rescue, not the escape. Just the acknowledgement that her choices could be provisional, that changing her mind was allowed. She handed back the keys and followed him to the car, her phone still buzzing with obligations she was finally learning to ignore. Sharon arrived at Ebenezer Baptist Church 13 minutes late for service, and a lifetime too late to avoid what was waiting in the vestibule. Patricia stood by the guest book in her cream St. John suit, pearls at her throat like a noose of respectability. Fury wrapped in Sunday morning decorum. Sharon Elise. Not a greeting. An indictment. The church ladies nearby suddenly found reasons to adjust their hats, creating plausible deniability while staying close enough to hear. Mom. Sharon kept her voice low. Can we do this later? Later? After you've humiliated me? After Denise called at 7 this morning asking why her son came home alone while you left with some Asian man. The whispers started. Asian man. Left alone. Each phrase loaded, ready to detonate. Sean was. Sharon started. Sean was trying to apologize and you walked out because some stranger interrupted? Do you know what people are saying? I don't care what people are saying. Patricia's face went rigid. Well, I care. Sister Carol asked if you were going through something. Deaconess Price is praying for my wayward daughter. Linda told me her son is devastated. He had me trapped. He was on his knees, Patricia hissed, making himself vulnerable, and you embarrassed both our families. For what? A man you don't even know. The organ started playing. The call to worship. But Sharon felt called to something else entirely. To judgment, to performance, to the choreography of black respectability that had ruled every decision. I needed to leave, Mom. Uncomfortable. Patricia said the word like it was foreign. Comfort is a luxury, Sharon. Reputation is survival. Then maybe I don't want to survive that way. The words came out before Sharon could stop them. Quiet but definitive. A line drawn in the marble floor of her mother's church. Patricia's eyes filled with tears she would never let fall in public. Don't call me until you're ready to apologize. To Sean. To his family. To me. She straightened her jacket. And fix your hair. People are watching. Patricia walked into the sanctuary alone, her heels clicking against the floor like a countdown. Sharon stood in the vestibule, her phone heavy in her purse with Taechon's business card tucked inside, and wondering if freedom always had to cost this much. The warehouse sat in Atlanta's industrial district, anonymous among dozens of identical structures. TCK Import Solutions. Nothing about it suggested anything other than a shipping operation. Sharon stood beside his Mercedes, watching Taechon unlock the entrance. Sunday evening, the day after her mother had stopped speaking to her. "You don't have to show me this," she said. "If we're going to continue, you need to see the whole picture. Not just what I tell you but what I actually do." Inside, the warehouse looked exactly like she'd expected. Shipping containers, forklifts, computer stations. Workers in safety vests with tablets. Everything traceable and legitimate. This is the business my father built. Electronics, automotive parts, Korean goods. All documented, all legal. Then why do I feel like there's a but coming? He led her to a back office where an older Korean man sat reviewing paperwork. "Mr. Park manages operations. He's been with my family since before I was born." Mr. Park bowed slightly. "Ms. Woods. Good to finally meet you." Taechon pulled up dual screens. One showed legitimate manifests. The other showed something else. Different codes, routes bypassing customs, financial transactions through constructed channels. "This is the other side. We don't move drugs or weapons. But we move money. We facilitate connections for people who need things done quietly. Political favors. Financial arrangements that blur legal lines." Sharon stared at the screens. Shadow operations existing in the spaces between legal and illegal. "When you sent those men after Sean?" "Yes. I had him investigated. His business dealings aren't clean. He's vulnerable in ways that make him controllable." "So you're Korean Mafia?" "The term doesn't translate exactly. But my family operates where law gets complicated. 3 generations, starting in Seoul." He met her eyes. "This is who I am. I can walk away from you if it's too much. But I can't walk away from this. Your sister. Ji-woo." She was being married off to strengthen a business alliance. To a violent man with connections. His voice stayed level. "I told her I'd figure something out. I had meetings I thought were important. By the time I got to her, she tried to end it all." Sharon understood. Why he'd intervened. Why he gave choices instead of rescue. "I need time to process this." "Take all the time you need." He handed her his car keys. She took them, but she didn't leave. Not yet. Sharon stared at her laptop at 2 in the morning, the Mercedes presentation open like an accusation. Her senior partner had resigned 3 days ago, taking half their strategy to a competitor. The pitch was Friday. Her phone buzzed. Taechon. She'd been avoiding him since the warehouse, processing what choosing him meant. But at 2 a.m. with everything falling apart, pride felt like a luxury. "I know it's late. You're awake. I'm awake. Tell me what's wrong." She told him about Mitchell's betrayal, the presentation she had to deliver alone, the Mercedes executives questioning her firm. "What do you need?" Not, "Let me fix this." Just, "What do you need?" "I need to not feel like I'm about to fail." "I'll be there in 20 minutes. He arrived with coffee. They sat on her living room floor, presentation boards spread like wreckage. "Walk me through your pitch." Mitchell's pitch. "I was just." Sharon. "Walk me through your pitch." She talked through the brand positioning, market analysis, creative strategy Mitchell had diluted. This part. This is someone else's voice. Sharon stared at 3 months of making herself smaller. Safe. Traditional. Forgettable. Mercedes buyers aren't buying transportation. They're buying proof. Proof they've arrived. That they belong in spaces that once excluded them. That's your pitch. That's the story only you can tell. They worked until dawn. Tae-chan didn't write a word. He just asked questions that forced her to own her vision. You're not an imposter. You're just the first person from your background in a room that's been pretending diversity doesn't make better work. Their discomfort isn't proof you don't belong. It's proof the room needed you. Friday afternoon, Sharon walked into the Mercedes boardroom alone. The executives were silent when she finished. Then the senior VP leaned forward. This is the first pitch that's made me feel something. You gave us truth. We want to move forward. With her. Sharon called Tae-chan from the parking garage. I got it. And I got promoted. Senior executive. You got yourself. I just reminded you what you already had. That evening, champagne on her balcony, she realized something. Sean had made her doubt herself. Patricia had made her perform herself. Tae-chan had made her remember herself. That was the difference between rescue and partnership. The celebration lasted 43 minutes before someone pounded on her door. She knew that knock. Urgent. Entitled. Through the peephole, Sean in rumpled suit, loosened tie, whiskey stains. The mask had cracked. Sharon, I know you're in there. Open the door. Sean, you need to leave. Leave? Like you left me at that restaurant? Made me look like a fool? Volume rising. Do you know what people are saying? Sharon's hand hovered over her phone. Security or Tae-chan? Or handle this herself? I'm not opening the door. You really think you're better than me now? That Korean Mafia wannabe makes you special? I looked into him, Sharon. I know what he is. Sharon's stomach went cold. You looked into him? Of course. You think I'd let you humiliate me without understanding who made you think you could? The handle rattled. Now open this door. Sharon was texting Tae-chan when she heard the lock turn. Sean had a key from 8 months ago. She'd never asked for it back. The door opened. Sean filled the frame, cologne mixing with whiskey, eyes carrying something she'd never let herself name. Control. There you are. He stepped inside uninvited. Get out. Or what? You'll call your criminal boyfriend? He closed the door. See, I've been thinking about us. About what you need to understand. He moved toward her. Sharon pressed send. Help. Sean's here. Texting him. Sean's face twisted. That's 3 sharp raps on the door. Professional. Final. 2 men in dark suits entered with quiet efficiency. Behind them, Tae-chan, face calm but eyes dangerous. Mr. Hawkins. We're going to escort you out now. Sean looked between them and Sharon, bravado dissolving. You can't. We can. The question is whether you walk or get carried. Sean's calculations settled on fear. He looked at Sharon one last time, trying to find the woman who used to shrink for him. She stood there in her celebration dress, flanked by men who'd arrived because she'd asked. Not because she was weak, but because needing help wasn't the same as needing rescue. Get him out, she said quietly. They did. Efficiently. Professionally. Terrifyingly. Sean didn't fight. When the door closed, Tae-chan stayed, holding out a new lock. I'll install this now. Tomorrow we'll make sure building security knows he's not welcome. Sharon took the lock. Thank you for coming. Thank you for calling. That's what partnership looks like. The call came at midnight. Tae-chan's phone lit up with Korean characters meaning, father. He answered, his voice shifting into something formal, careful, edged with fear. When he hung up, his face had changed. My father had a stroke. He can't manage operations anymore. When do you leave? Friday. I need 3 days to arrange things. He looked at her. It could be 6 months, Sharon. Maybe longer. My uncle is positioning for control. If I don't stabilize things, people will die. 6 months. The word sat between them. Then you go. You do what you need to do. I'm asking you to wait. Through time zones and distance. To build something across 14 hours and 7,000 miles. Sharon thought about Sean, who couldn't handle her working late. About men who wanted her convenient. Here was Tae-chan offering the opposite and asking if she was brave enough. Then I'll wait. We'll figure it out. Friday evening, airport departure lane. Neither ready for goodbye. Call when you land. Even if it's my middle of the night. He kissed her like memorization. Then he was gone. The first month was brutal. 3 a.m. FaceTime calls. Tae-chan negotiating with his uncle. Managing his father's care. Sharon running her team, avoiding her mother, sleeping in fragments. You look exhausted, he said. Face pixelated and distant. You look worse. She smiled. Tell me about Seoul. He told her about family politics, about Ji-woo unchanged in her care facility, about pressure to marry strategically. Are you reconsidering? Every day. Then I remember why I left. Why I met you. His voice softened. 6 months Seoul. 6 months Atlanta. I negotiated it. It's enough. We'll make it enough. 2 months in, Patricia showed up. Sunday afternoon. No warning. Face arranged for ultimatum. How long will you wait for him, Sharon? A man 7,000 miles away with obligations you can't compete with. Patricia sat uninvited. While Sean is still. Stop. This is your last attempt to make me choose your life instead of mine. I'm trying to protect you from the biggest mistake of your life. The biggest mistake would be listening to you. I love him, Mom. I'm going to keep loving him through distance and difficulty. Because he sees me. Really sees me. And that's worth more than convenient. Patricia stood, picking up her purse with shaking hands. When he doesn't come back, don't call me. He'll come back. But even if he doesn't, I still won't regret choosing truth over your version of safety. The door closed. Maybe for the last time. Sharon looked at her phone. 3 hours until Tae-chan's call. She poured wine and waited, choosing the hard thing because it was also the right thing. 6 months later, Sharon stood in international arrivals wearing the crimson dress from that first nightmare dinner. But this time, she'd chosen it. This time, it meant something else. Korean Air Flight 036 had landed. Tae-chan emerged from customs looking thinner, exhausted. But his eyes found hers with the certainty of someone who'd crossed 7,000 miles for this moment. She walked. Deliberately. Like a woman who'd learned the difference between rescue and choice. 6 months, he said. You negotiated it. 6 months Seoul. 6 months here. I told them I had something worth fighting for. They drove to Nikolai's roof. The same restaurant where her old life had ended. A different table now by the window, Atlanta spread below like possibility. I need to tell you something, Tae-chan said. My father wants me to marry someone in Seoul. Someone who can strengthen alliances. That's the price of the arrangement. He took her hand. So I have a choice. And I've made it. He pulled out a velvet box. Not flashy. Just real. I'm asking you to build a world with me. Where you're safe and seen and free. Where everyone who told you to make yourself smaller was wrong. It won't be easy. My world is complicated. But I'm asking you to choose dangerous truth over comfortable lies. Sharon looked at the ring, then at him. She thought about the bathroom text 6 months ago. About Sean's grip. About Patricia's ultimatums. About learning to choose herself. I need to do something first. She called Patricia. Mom. Tae-chan just proposed. I wanted you to know before I said yes. I'm inviting you to be part of this. Not to control it but to witness it. Because I love you. But I'm choosing him. And I need you to accept that. Silence stretched long enough. Sharon wondered if she'd hung up. Then her mother's voice, smaller than she'd ever heard. Is he good to you? He sees me, Mom. Really sees me. Another pause. Then I'll be there. When you're ready, I'll be there. If you want me. I want you. On my terms. I understand. Sharon hung up and looked at Tae-chan. Yes. To all of it. To Seoul and Atlanta. To complications. To building something that doesn't look like anyone's definition of right. To choosing dangerous truth. He slid the ring on, and the restaurant erupted in applause. That evening, Sharon stood on her balcony, ring catching Atlanta light. Sean had made her doubt herself. Patricia had made her perform herself. Tae-chan had taught her to remember herself. She'd started in a bathroom, texting her mother for permission to leave a nightmare. She'd ended here, giving her mother permission to witness her happiness. That was the transformation. Not rescue. Choice. We appreciate you staying with us through to the final moment. If you enjoyed this experience, you are going to love what's coming next. It's a story more intriguing than anything you've seen yet. Check it out here to see for yourself.